Welcome to Community and Technology, where we connect the global community with news, information, and resources that we hope will help improve your life. I'm Stu Reid. Here's my co-host, Dave Burstein. Hey, Dave.
Hello.
What's going on? I think you got a follow-up to some stuff we've been talking about sickle cell treatment for a couple of shows, and there's been another breakthrough, Dave. Is that right?
Well, I don't know if it should be considered a full breakthrough, but the British Health Service has just approved and is starting to use a new pill that seems to help. The reason this is such an important thing that I wanted to pull to the top of the show is that, yes, there are two dramatic treatments now available if you have or can get about $4 million. The cost of one is
Oh, sure.
3.1 million plus, and are dangerous as heck, literally life-threatening.
These are the
One,
genetic treatments, right, Dave?
yeah,
Genetic
the genetic
cell
treatments
manipulation.
almost definitely work for most people, but they mean you're going to be spending too much in the hospital because they have to knock out your immune system,
Hmm.
and some people are going to die from that. That's not necessarily the right choice, even though given what sickle cell can be, i.e. so severe that it will lead to suicide, it might be the right choice for some people. The British stuff has far fewer side effects, but less dramatic results.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a new pill, and it is fine. I went and looked at the medical articles. There's 5 years of journal articles saying it definitely improves people's hemoglobin, which is what sickle cell is about. It's not a cure. You've got to take a pill every day, probably for the rest of your life. But there's a reason that if I had to make this decision, I would probably try the pill before I tried the genetic engineering drama.
So the
The
pill
reason,
mitigates the symptoms. It's not a cure, but it mitigates the crazy pain and the symptoms that folks get from sickle cell.
yes, uh, and how much it mitigates varies by patient,
Hmm.
but it often seems to work quite well. The British are now going to give it routinely to every sickle cell patient in England.
Hmm.
So I look at the reason why, if I had to make the choice, and I'm not medically trained, I would probably try the pill first. Possibly it will be enough, but also because Jennifer Doudna, Nobel laureate for coming up with the process that led to the genetic engineering CRISPR, says that her lab and others are working on a less dangerous treatment and less expensive treatment than the current genetic engineering. And she's optimistic that will be available within 5 years.
Hmm.
It's not out there yet. In fact, as far as I know, they haven't even tried it on human beings yet. But that would influence me. And I think it's something that everybody should know who has to make the decision.
Is there
So
any
you've got
data
the
on
next.
Dave, on the affordability of this pill option that the Brits have developed? It
It's
can't be
not going to
$3 million for the treatment.
yeah, it's
What's that?
not going to be so crazy.
Uh-huh.
And the Brits think it's affordable enough to give to tens of thousands of people.
They're going to give it away.
The National Health Service covers everybody's medicine in England.
Wow. Wow. What a
And
concept.
uh, I happened to get mildly sick when I was there
Hmm.
a while back. I went to the emergency room, took care of me properly and sensibly,
Hmm.
gave me good advice, and they didn't even give me a bill.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
stunning. That's stunning. Wow.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But that's in the
What's the name of this treatment? Is there a generic name or a name for the drug that the Brits have come up with? What are they calling it?
I've got it right here. It is called Veloxator.
Mm-hmm.
Trade name is going to be Oxbrita.
Okay.
No, I apologize. I said tens of thousands. That's a number of people who might need it, but
Mm-hmm.
they're talking about giving it to 4,000 people now.
Mm-hmm.
But that suggests that it's affordable enough that you can expect, if you have drug coverage, to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, most adults with sickle cell have such a hard time working and earning a living, they're probably covered by Medicaid on this,
Mm-hmm.
which should be, of course, covering everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to get that out there. The NHS, which is the official health service for all the Brits, calls it life-changing.
Wow. So do we know anything about whether when it may be released in this country?
I just saw this a little bit before we came on the air,
Mm-hmm.
and I was looking at the medical articles, including in the New England Journal, that is the basic data that shows it has an effect. I haven't had a chance to check. If the Brits have officially approved it, as they did, the Americans are likely to follow soon.
Okay, well, we will be following this story, so be sure and continue to listen to Community Technology for updates on this latest treatment for sickle cell. That's pretty amazing, Dave, to go from that $3 million genetic cure that we talked about a couple weeks back to now there's a maybe affordable pill that doesn't cure the problem, but significantly mitigates the symptoms. That's a breakthrough.
I hope it works that
Yeah.
well for everybody who needs it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what else
Now,
with that? What else is going on in the world, Dave?
well, let's go to how you can identify deep fakes, which I think you can't or won't be able to if they're done well. What
Yeah.
did the article say?
Yeah, interesting story. This is an article carried by AP, Associated Press, about how to spot deep fakes. And they give a number of suggestions talking about deep fake photos. One, to kind of look for a sheen on the photos, which is a sort of a aesthetic smoothing effect that is an artifact of deep fakes. Check the consistency of shadows and lighting to see if they're consistent on all aspects of the photo. They suggest you look at skin tone and see if there's any kind of blemishes or inconsistencies across the face or any other parts of the body, skin tone wise. They also talk about the one cybersecurity expert talks about looking at, as people are talking, of course, you're going to look to see if the mouth is synchronized with the sound. That's an obvious one.
But let me come in
look
there.
at the teeth.
Let me come in with that one.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Okay. The author of the article at the end said, everything is getting much better very rapidly, which I can confirm, and none of these may work in a year or two. Probably most of them can be avoided by a good programmer who puts it together and spends the time, that you could come up with something that dealt with all these possibilities and eliminated them. But one thing that they said in the article that I know is going to change is what you just mentioned. The article says you can see if the lip syncing doesn't correspond to what you're hearing. Microsoft has solved that problem incredibly well. And we brought it to the air a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't released it as a product because they're afraid of what people are going to do. But there are half dozen examples on the web from Microsoft of what looks like absolutely perfect lip sync
Mm-hmm.
and also uses the voice that they've synthesized quite well based on a recording of the person whose voice they want to use.
Mm-hmm. Now, Dave, what about this article also talks about using AI tools to fight fake AIs. They reference a Microsoft tool called the Inauthenticator tool and another one from Intel called Fake Catcher that are supposedly designed, well, they're designed, I don't know how effective they are, but they're designed to identify deep fakes. What do you think about those?
They probably will work on somebody who doesn't do it very well. They probably won't work. And the people who put the software out have said the same on really well done deep fakes, and they don't know how much longer it's going to last.
Yeah.
You certainly can get rid of a cheap politician whose teenage son has done something to put words in the mouth of the opponent, which is happening now,
Mm-hmm.
not from teenage sons, but from official party hires in India. But that's a separate story we'll get to.
Okay.
Uh,
Just want to mention that consistent with what you're saying about how the technology is probably going to catch up with these authenticator tools. This story referred to a deep fake arms race. And I thought that was just an interesting way to look at what's going on, where you got the folks that are working on the deep fake technology, and you got the folks that are working on identifying it. And it seems to be moving at lightning speed right through here. And this author predicts that pretty soon, none of these tools are going to be able to identify a fake from the real thing.
if it's well made, and obviously there's going to be a lot that aren't well made.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, OpenAI and Google, and with probable support from others, intend to put a watermark on any video, on any, well, they're not doing it on video yet, but in any photograph that has been created by AI.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing. It's going to identify a whole lot of things. But the same people who put the software out said somebody good can get around it quite easily.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Dave, you talked about, you mentioned as we were talking about deep fakes that they now have the technology where you can take a clip of someone's voice and replicate that and have them say things that they never said. Now, one of the stories that I ran across that kind of puts a quote unquote positive spin on the use of that technology. This story was called "When Grief and AI Collide," and what this story talks about is folks that have taken snippets of audio of loved ones who are deceased and recreating their voice. And I'm not sure if there's imagery as well, but certainly their voice and bringing them back alive as an AI companion of one sort or another. One story talked about a young housewife who had recently lost her husband, and her husband was the chef in the home. And she has a few audio clips, and she was able to using AI to manipulate it. And now she has an AI avatar, which is her husband, deceased husband, and she now goes to him for help on meals, on meal ideas and how to cook and recipes and that kind of thing. And it sounds maybe a little bit trivial, but when you're able to actually kind of resurrect, if you will, your spouse, your life companion, with their voice and talking to you in ways that they previously did. For instance, this husband, help prepare the meals. That's got to be a really powerful impact on the person that's receiving it. And the story went on to talk about generative AI tools, which we've talked about here, to create other conversations and avatars, if you will, with folks who have died. And one guy, a 49-year-old IT professional from Alabama, said that he cloned his father's voice using generative AI about 2 years before he died from Alzheimer's. And now using something called 11 Labs, which allows you to create a custom voice model from previously recorded audio. He's able to have conversations with his dad who's no longer here. And he's quoted saying it was absolutely astonishing how much it sounded like him. And it's amazing, Dave. And it sounds like some of these tools allow you to, input nuance and other characteristics, special phrases and special interests, and the way that somebody spoke into the model and incorporate it into the conversation. To me, it's an amazing platform, an amazing concept to be able to, if you will, resurrect folks who are no longer here and speak to them, listen to them, conversate with them in their own voice. I mean, it's a little scary, but it's also very powerful, and I can imagine there are folks that it's very therapeutic and very soothing for some folks. It must be. Well, what are your thoughts?
Well, Conan Doyle, we know him as the author of Sherlock Holmes, and as such, really looking at the facts, spent 20 years of his life working with mediums and other sensitive people to connect with the dead. Mm-hmm. Lots of people believe in it. Far more people would like to do it if they could believe in it. So this is something that people really want. Let me talk about how you can do it and how you will be able to do it easily and inexpensively in the near future. I'm talking 6 months to 2 years.
Really? Wow. Okay. Go.
Okay.
Sure.
How does it work? First, we've talked before about voice cloning. OpenAI has given examples of taking 15 seconds of somebody's voice and generating a voice very much like theirs. Joanna Stern at the Wall Street Journal almost a year ago went to one of the voice clones, and it worked so well she fooled her own mother. This stuff works. If you want to listen to Franklin Roosevelt or Jack Kennedy or Albert Einstein, there's actually web services that can do it for you. And we'll have another example in a moment. The lip syncing, as I just mentioned, can be near perfect. And the thing that wasn't clear in that article is how you can come up with not just the voice of somebody, not just what you recorded them on, but their opinions on so many other things. How do you do that? You take one of the models, and there are many accessible ones now, and you feed it information from that person. For example, you could take all the email I've sent. I happen to have a file that's more than 10 years. It's a lot of my opinions, including some of them are quite personal. Most of them are work, but some of them are quite personal. Feed it into the AI, and just like the AI can put words in an author's article, as we've all seen, it can put words in the conversation from that person.
That's astounding, Dave. That is incredible. I mean, A, that it can do that, but B, I'm thinking about the impact. I mean, that you can essentially bring back someone who is gone and have them talk in their voice, have them talk about things and opinions that are actually theirs or were theirs based on information that you fed in there. And I could see that that's a way, looking forward, that'll be a way to really preserve and in some ways immortalize loved ones.
It works.
Hmm.
I've seen examples. I understand the technology. Right now, it's not trivial to do, but it's absolutely doable. And you actually could find a way to do it for free if you knew how to play these games.
Hmm.
Remember, the AI models that are coming out now work on a cell phone or a home computer.
Wow.
Samsung is doing some of that. Google is doing some of that.
Hmm.
And I guarantee that when the next iPhone comes out in September, Apple will do this really well, which
Hmm.
I'm saying because some of the Apple researchers have published some of their research.
Hmm.
So AI is not $100 million software for many purposes. The best still does cost 100 million, but you can go to that company and do it for $20 a month.
Hmm.
And it's becoming more and more practical for people. As we were talking this, I realized I have some videotapes of my mother. Just before she died of
Hmm.
cancer. Danny and I got the money together to buy a VCR. This was enough long ago that it wasn't cheap.
Yeah,
And I
I
have a
remember when
few
they
tapes
first,
of
they
her.
were $1,000, Dave, when they first came out. You and I are old enough to remember that.
And I remember when any decent home computer cost 3,000.
That's right. Yep.
So this is what's happened because of chips, and we can get into all of
Oh,
that.
but you say you found video of your mom. What are you gonna do?
I haven't figured it out yet, but I know I could capture her voice and come up with somebody who sounds like her. I can even go further. I can ask the existing AI, have her say the kinds of things a very intelligent, very sensitive Jewish woman of about her age would say when I ask a question. And the AIs are now good enough, as we know from the artificial characters and everything else,
Hmm.
to come up with something that would sound pretty sensible.
Wow.
Now, you mentioned 11 labs being used for that. Jenny has a professional project. They don't have that much budget. So she actually is using synthesized voices that, well, her colleague said they sound a little flat, but were good enough to put into a professional project
Hmm.
and are getting much better very quickly.
Wow.
40,000 books have now been read for AI audio books.
Hmm.
We came to this show a while back with an article from a reviewer at the Washington Post who said for the first 5 minutes, she was amazed at the quality of an AI reading of a book. And then, as she listened to it longer, she wasn't very happy because it was flat.
Okay, hang on there. An AI reading of a book. You're talking about a synthesized artificial voice that is fed the printed copy of a book, reading it back out loud. Is that what that is?
Only 40,000 books have been done so far,
Okay.
according to
Uh-huh.
an article
Uh-huh.
I saw.
So
And
audiobooks generated by AI as opposed to an actor or an actress.
well, it may often be by an actor's voice, because how do you
Okay,
create the AI
gotcha,
voices?
gotcha.
You hire an actor to come into the studio for 2 days, or you pick up all the books a voice actor has read, and hopefully with permission, hopefully for a
Right.
fair fee,
Mhm.
you actually clone that voice and that style, and you can do it quite well now. As I say, Joanna Stern fooled her own mother,
Mhm.
and everything here is getting better by the day,
Wow.
including your next boyfriend or girlfriend.
Yeah, okay. Well, I want to talk about that, Dave. We got to take a break here, but yes, when we come back, We're going to talk about AI girlfriends. I mean, amazing what's going on with this technology.
No. We shouldn't be so presumptive. Girlfriends or
Or
boyfriends.
boyfriends, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So this is Community and Technology on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. We're going to take a brief break and be right back. Stay tuned.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. It's a new life for me, yeah. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. It's a new life for me. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean, don't you know? Butterflies all having fun, you know what I mean. Sleep in peace when day is done, that's what I mean. And this old world is a new world and a bold world for me. Yeah, yeah. Stars, when you shine, you know how I feel. Scent of the pine, you know how I feel. Oh, freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. I'm feeling
Okay, we're back. Community and Technology on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem, with Dave Burstein and Stu Reid. Dave, before the break, we were talking about some incredible advances in AI and how they're able to clone voices of lost family members and relatives and create personas and avatars that speak to you as though they were those folks. But one of the other developments that's going on that I want to talk about is AI girlfriends and boyfriends. AI is now able to actually generate both text relationships and voice relationships, where you're able to interact with a entity that you help create. You can define how you want this entity to be and characteristics and etc. and interact on both text and or voice.
They got one commercial service. I
Mhm.
haven't tried it. It's not my thing, but I know it could be very good if done right. Has done that already with a dozen people who have a lot of video
Mhm.
and hence voice on the web, including several from OnlyFans, which is a porn site.
Mm.
You don't have to make your own model, and it doesn't have to be an AI generated fake. it can be a very good simulation, good enough that it looks, if they did it right, it looks almost as good as the original videos, based on the hours and hours of video that a porn star would put up on OnlyFans. It's a little bit expensive now. That's going to change, as I say. You're going to be able to do it on your cell phone within the year.
Wow.
And do it quite well. And this is a commercial service which claims thousands of customers are paying them. I think it's expensive, like one of these sexy phone call things. It is not merely totally explicit, it's able to generate pictures of that particular woman or boy that look just like them, often doing what they're talking about. And of course, when you set it up, as you said, you can have them talk about whatever you want them to talk about. Food fetishes will have a good time with this.
You know, Dave, as I'm reading about some of these platforms, I'm just going to mention a couple names if folks want to check them out. One is Candy.ai, another one is Dream GF, another one is Cupid, spelled with a K-U-P-I-D, another is Soul Fun. What this article talks about is the nuanced relationship that you can build and create with this avatar, whether it be text or voice. But what you're talking about is probably what's going to really drive the real development of this type of technology, and that is, quite frankly, sex. You and I have been around long.
I'm all in favor of sex.
Yeah, me too. But no, but just footnote. I've mentioned this earlier on the show because you and I were around when there was no video. I remember when video was brand new. I began my videography career in the 70s, early mid-70s, when people didn't even know what video was. This was pre-Betamax, pre-VHS. There was no home video. But as home video evolved, you got VHS and the Betamax, and they had their wars and marketing wars. And video stores were born where you could go in and rent videotape. And what drove the video store market, what created that market, was sex tapes. Movies came later. It was the sexual stuff that really birthed that industry and helped it really become commercially viable. And then Hollywood jumped on and said, oh, okay, well, I'm going to start to license the movies to these operators. And you had things like Blockbuster and other folks jumped into the fray. But it was the sexual content that birthed and really were the early drivers of the home video, not the home video, the video rental business. And I'm saying that here, no surprise, with the AI generated girlfriends and boyfriends. And wow, that's stunning, Dave. I mean, who knows what you and I would be doing if we were 40, 50 years younger. But I can imagine the young people today, I mean, what they're going to do with this, it's mind-boggling.
Let's go further with it. First of all, if we hadn't just given you the name of some and you didn't know how to use Google to find them, you could go to Facebook, where these companies are taking ads right and left. Again, according to an article I read that I haven't checked out myself. And you can remember, on Facebook, you can target your audience. So if you wanted to reach a 20 to 30-year-old woman in Charlotte, North Carolina, Charlotte in North or South Carolina?
Charlotte's in North Carolina.
North Carolina. You can take an ad offering it to them. And in that ad, you can have a clip of somebody talking with an accent that sounds like Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Facebook would not let you put the explicit videos on there, so you have to link to them as opposed to put them directly in Facebook. That's happening. And I'm going to get back to what you can do with the thing. But while we're on Facebook ads, a powerful article in the Washington Post, I think it was, Washington Post? NPR. An NPR article was about the people trying to come across the border to the United States. They don't all die along the way, but literally thousands of people are dying trying to cross in the United States, and there's something the matter with that. But that's a different discussion. The thing that came into the article is that it seems that half the people crossing to the United States are no longer from Mexico and Central America. They're coming from all of the world, including a large number of folks from India and China, who pay about $10,000 to a snakehead to try to smuggle them into the United States. Now, how do those snakeheads get customers?
What do you call it? Snakehead? What's that term? You missed it.
Snakeheads is a term that comes out of the people who smuggled people from China into the U.S.
Okay.
The people who made that happen were called snakeheads, and there's certainly many Chinese in it. NPR story said most of it has been taken over by the heavy-duty Mexican drug gangs. They like making money this way, and they certainly can buy a few border patrolmen if they wanted to. They're border patrolmen are like any other enforcement agency. Some of them are going to be corrupt. And how do you get people? How do they find the people who can pay them the $10,000? Facebook and things like that. So if you want to target your ad about U.S. immigration alternatives to somebody in North Brazil, say, where there's a lot of poor people, Facebook will be happy to sell that to you. And you could write it in such a way that it could have been from a legitimate immigration lawyer. But it's really somebody who is going to maybe steal your money, maybe kill you along the way, or maybe get you into the United States, or maybe get you to the Rio Grande and points, there's a hole in the fence if you swim the river right here. And they are dying in the Rio Grande daily. That's not a text story, but it's a story that's worth telling. And well, this is one of the...
Before we leave the AI girlfriend boyfriend story, I just wanted to get your thoughts about, you know, how this may impact human relationships. We're talking about a whole nother level of interaction with folks with technology, with virtual people, with virtual relationships that in some ways could supplant and or replace real human relationships. And when you throw
what do you mean should or can? It's happening already.
Yeah, and when you throw the sexual layer on top of just the human interaction, it's powerful. And you know, I don't know where that's going to go, but it in my mind it does not bode well for the evolution of real human person-to-person relationships when you've got these surrogate virtual relationships that you can control, manipulate, define, and have them work just like you want them to work, which of course almost never happens in real life.
Unless you have a lot of money.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. true.
Like a former governor of New York State
Yeah.
who was
Like
paying
the former president
$1,000
of
an
the
hour
United
for his
States.
pleasures.
Okay, so I mean,
Yeah.
that,
So
that
this is
that's
coming.
something we want to keep an eye on. To me, that's gonna, that's gonna have an impact on society as it kind of evolves. That aspect of AI and human relationships.
Journalists know, just as we were just saying, that sex sells.
Hmm.
So and it brings in clicks. So there's a lot of people looking at this and reporting it, and I'm finding all the AI articles I can find, dozens a day. And this is one of the popular topics. First thing, the kind of people who think pornography harms you, and there are many of them, including congressmen and university professors, think this was just like pornography and worse, and something has to be done about it. Other people, to my surprise, take the opposite point of view. Not necessarily talking about the sex, but it's implied, but pointing out how many people are lonely and have no one to talk to.
Yeah, yeah.
And it is getting good enough to have AI friends, and many of the listeners to this show will have them in a few years. Absolutely many of the listeners to this show.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily from an expensive service that gives you porn stars, although that's already available. It's going to be built into every game that you have. That these artificial characters with real human voices, real human expressions, perfect lip syncing, and so on, are exactly what every game designer is working on making practical for their games.
What kind
So
of
you're
games are you
going
talking about, Dave? What kind of games are you talking about? I mean,
online games,
mm-hmm,
battle games,
mm-hmm,
simulation games, all
mm-hmm,
the games that people play.
mm-hmm.
I'm not much of a gamer, so don't take my opinion on what's going on there now. But it's definitely happening on one level. You absolutely can get in the best games something that looks like a photo. You're starting to be able to get things that look like a short video. You certainly can get realistic voices, and they're going to pick that up. Now, why do I think many people will be using it? Beside the fact I know how many people are gamesters. Remember, gaming is bigger than Hollywood. Many, many people have created their relationships with people, real people, that they only meet on gaming through the web. And that's one of the attractions of something like Fortnite.
Mm-hmm.
You work with a team, you coordinate with them, you're talking to them, you're getting to know them. You may even become fairly close friends and discuss things far outside the game with them. And that is enormously attractive. I say because it's already attracting many, many people. So one of the articles that was talking about this came up with some academic research that said half the people in America are very lonely, and suggests that this is going to be a way to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And other folks, everybody working with the aging is looking at ways to use AI and robots to help the aging. So you think of it maybe as changing the bed sheets or cooking a meal, both of which are not impossible today, but are $30,000 machines that don't work very well. But also talking and providing a companion.
Yeah.
AI does not produce brilliant literature, and it will not necessarily produce brilliant conversation, but it already is producing stories and pictures that not merely are going out there commercially, but occasionally even winning prizes when the judge doesn't know it's from AI.
Mhm.
And this is when the AI for that kind of thing is not very good. And of course, hallucinates far too often. But there's no problem with having somebody talking to you who occasionally makes a ridiculous mistake.
Yeah, I mean, if you're lonely and just need a companion, you don't need brilliance. You need you need something that simulates compassion and understanding. And once they're able to do that with AI, and when you tie that in with the earlier story that we talked about, using voices and attributes of loved ones that are no longer here, when you overlay that aspect on it, I mean, it really could be a powerful therapeutic tool, if you will, to help folks get through life.
Now, some of the people working with this are saying it already is a powerful therapeutic tool. Because most of the people working with this naturally are people who really believe in it. And they have the same problem with cognitive distortion as any human being does. In fact, many of them are brilliant, and it turns out that there's more confirmation bias the smarter you happen to be. That really surprised me, but the psychologists have loads of evidence on that. Okay, so this is already out there in volume and getting better and better. Will we remember Her, the movie? Did you see that one?
No, the name of the movie
It
is
was a
Her?
very realistic story, quite a good movie, about somebody who fell in love with the AI in a few years from now in the future. And we know that's possible. They had a real actress, and they wrote the script. It wasn't developed, that part wasn't developed by AI. But you certainly could do it in AI, and you could be able to do it better and better in any voice. As I say, Albert Einstein is commercially available. So are a lot of porn stars.
It just opens up the palette is I won't say infinite, but boy, is it exhaustive.
Now, I'm not an expert at predicting the future. Neither are the science fiction authors, at least the smart ones say they're not, even when they're actually doing it. So I can't tell you what's going to happen on how people will use it, but I can tell you the technology I've already seen can do all of this. And that technology is very rapidly coming to the point you can put it on a very inexpensive service out there that you sign on to, or literally on your home computer and mobile phone. How's that going to change the world? That I don't have an answer to.
Yeah.
But the technology is coming.
There's
another one. How much time do we have?
We got about 5 minutes, Dave. So what do you want to go to before we wrap up?
Okay, there's one I wanted to bring on the air. It's an anniversary, and it's from a couple of friends of ours, actually. 50 years ago today, the MIT artificial intelligence labs reminded everybody, tweeted about an anniversary.
Would that be the birth of the internet, Dave?
It was the day that Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn published the paper offering TCP/IP, or at least IP, the protocols that are still running the internet. 50 years ago. Took a while before it got out there, but we all know how well it works. And the internet today is still running on TCP/IP that was designed by Bob and Vint 50 years ago.
And Vint is still alive. Is Bob still alive? Do you know, Dave?
Yes.
Okay.
He's in his late 80s. I haven't seen him in about 4 years. Vint is actually active. He's been giving speeches and so on. He had a rough bout of COVID, and people were worried for him, but he made it through. And it was very good to see. Vint and I have had a lot of disagreements because we disagree on who should control the internet.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should be all the users. He's with the people who wanted to keep it very much the way it is now, which is a much smaller group.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't want governments getting involved in any way. I think that not having governments getting involved in some way means it's going to be run by a few giant companies.
Mm-hmm.
These are things that reasonable people will disagree about. But there's no doubt that what he did is one of the best pieces of programming. What he and Bob did is one of the greatest inventions of all time. And why do I say that so firmly? Not just because we know what the internet is, but what they did is they designed it for a Defense Department network that had maybe 6 or 10 computers connected.
Mm-hmm.
And they designed it so well that it's now able to connect 6 billion people. That is almost an unbelievable feat of invention.
Mm-hmm.
And that's worth mentioning now that we're on the 50th anniversary there.
Okay, well, thank you, Vince Cerf and Bob. What's Bob's last name? Bob Kahn?
Bob Kahn.
Bob Kahn. Wow, 50 years later, still going strong. That is an amazing scaling, if you will, of a technology, Dave, from 6 to 6 billion. And the basic protocol language of how the computers talk to each other still works. It's intact. That's amazing. Yeah.
And Vic has actually been one of the people who have been opposing the effort by the big phone companies and the Chinese to change that to give more control of the internet to the big, especially telephone companies and the Chinese, which has been a big fight in internet policy for the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese are going to move ahead, and probably most of the world is going to follow them because there's such a large percentage of the internet. So he may be tilting at windmills, but I was on one of the committees that was involved in this, and I was one of the very few things saying, no, we don't want to mess with TCP/IP. We know it works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to find a way to make sure that if you are in Shanghai trying to run a robot that's in Chengdu, or Paris for that matter, your network reliably runs fast enough to do it. And to do that, they say they should have more control over what's happening over the network.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
another story.
Yeah, that's another story for another afternoon, Dave. Great conversation today. Thank you. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
I spend all my time, not all my time, I still go out occasionally, and I still pay some attention to Jenny, but an enormous amount of my time, 996 as the Chinese call it, trying to understand what's going on in AI.
Mm-hmm.
My linear algebra is not that strong. Neither is my tensor calculus. And I'm not going to try to write the science there. I don't have a PhD. And most of the people who are writing the science have a PhD or the equivalent. I don't have the mathematical intuition, but I can see what's happening. And it's easy to see what's happening because I can see not merely people talking about and people projecting. I can see what is actually visible that has been created. Voice is there. Video is close. Personalities are getting pretty good,
Mm-hmm.
including empathy. One of the things that the medical people are doing is putting the computers into medicine and teaching them how to be empathetic, be sympathetic, understand what the person needs to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so good that some of the medical schools are using this computer scripts that have been generated by AI to train medical students
Wow.
in how they can talk sympathetically to their patients.
Amazing.
We know the dangers. We haven't ignored them, but there's also very wonderful things happening.
Okay, David, we certainly appreciate your non-mathematical interpretation and explanations of what's going on in a complex area, AI that is. So thanks again for being here on Community Technology every Wednesday, 5 p.m. on WHCR 90.3 FM, and of course on the web at WHCR.org. Tune in. You just might learn something. Thanks. Good night.